Now that the Tournament of Champions is behind us, it's time for us to get back to making videos about all games, Assassin's Creed and more. But if you haven't witnessed the Assassin's Creed tournament, the greatest clash of titans in history, you're doing yourself dirty. So don't be a traitor to the creed, go check it out right now. And now about today's video, a topic that's really intrigued me in the past few months. The gaming industry has really moved light years ahead in the last decade. The kind of money it makes, the popularity, and the topic of today's video, the budget. The budget and the revenue of today's games is comparable, if not more, than popular A-list Hollywood movies. Now that's saying something, especially when we look back at what the gaming industry used to be a decade or two ago. And the Assassin's Creed franchise being one of the flag bearers of the gaming industry is without a doubt one of the most profitable franchises in history. But what kind of money is Ubisoft spending to make these games come to life? Developing these games is not easy. There are tens of studios, thousands of people, including voice actors, animators, writers, directors, music directors. And in addition to that, there's a ton of motion capture, a massive design team, and the millions of dollars spent in promotion. The budget of these games are shocking, I promise you that. So don't be too shocked to hit the subscribe button and like the video. It helps tremendously and it's free, so help a brother from the creed. Now let's get right into the list. Number 12, Assassin's Creed Revelations. A game that was never supposed to be. It was almost hastily thrown together in order to accommodate the developers of AC3 some extra time, an extra year in fact. And despite that fact, Assassin's Creed Revelations turned out to be the perfect swan song to one of the best protagonists in the entire series, Ezio Auditore, a much needed chapter and a fitting end for this amazing character. Made only in a budget of between $15 and $18 million, many people consider this to be the best in the Ezio trilogy. And do I agree with that? Well, that's for another video. And also note that this is no small number, $15 to $18 million. That's not a small sum of money in any sense of the way. And yet Revelations is the game with the least budget, and it only gets bigger and bigger from here. By the way, do you know how much Ubisoft has spent to make all the Assassin's Creed games? Well, stick around to find out. Next, number 11, Assassin's Creed 1. The game that started it all and what was supposed to be a spin-off to the Prince of Persia franchise, Assassin's Creed 1 was an instant hit. People were in love with this hooded murderous man known as Altair, and the game turned out to be a massively profitable outing for Ubisoft. Made with a meager budget of $20 million, this game really spawned a dynasty that continues to live on to this day. Well, it's probably the best decision Ubisoft ever took. Next, number 10, Assassin's Creed 2. Released in the year 2009, this game really put Ubisoft and the franchise on the map in a way that was unforeseen. It arrived and completely changed the direction that the franchise was heading in. Assassin's Creed was suddenly the focus of the entire gaming industry, regarded to this day as one of the best games ever made, and rightfully so. And despite being one of the best, it's not one of the most expensive. Made with a meager budget of $25 million, Assassin's Creed 2 is a gem, one of the most profitable games in the series, and to this day one of the fan favorites. Even today, the remastered version of this game is selling like hotcakes, and the $25 million is literally the synonym of money well spent. Next, number 9, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. Assassin's Creed 2's direct sequel, Brotherhood, is one of those games that literally improved upon every single aspect from its predecessor. Be it the combat, the gameplay, the visuals, arguably the story, definitely the side missions, and the budget. Made with a budget of between $25 and $30 million, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is a game that could not have been better. It is widely regarded by the fans of the franchise as the golden era of Assassin's Creed. It was literally an era when Ubisoft could not have made a bad move, unlike today. So despite the hefty price tag of the game, it is undoubtedly justified. Next, number 8, Assassin's Creed Rogue. Another game made with the scraps, the leftovers of a previous game. One can say Assassin's Creed Rogue was just a cheap knockoff of Black Flag, because the gameplay mechanics, the visuals, the naval system, they were all pretty much the same, except there was one glaring difference. While Black Flag completely capitalized on its potential, Assassin's Creed Rogue immensely failed at just that. Trust me, the potential was there. All they had to do was give this game the time, the attention it deserved, so that they could squeeze everything the game was worth out of it. And that would also require a massive amount of money. Made only with a budget of between $30 and $35 million, Assassin's Creed Rogue never got what it deserved. Not the care, not the love, and definitely not the cash. In my eyes, it's one of the biggest missed opportunities in the Assassin's Creed series. Unfortunate, but it is what it is. Next, number 7, Assassin's Creed 3. At the time, AC3 was the prodigal son, the next big thing. The game that was supposed to turn everything around for Ubisoft, put it up in the stratosphere. Well, it kind of did that because the game made a tremendous amount of money, and the sales well is one of the best selling games in the entire series. And despite the developers squeezing in Revelations just to give this game enough time to be perfected. It never really was. I'd like to say that Assassin's Creed 3 and Unity are two of the most ambitious projects to have ever been undertaken by Ubisoft, and unfortunately neither one of these games was ready to hit the markets when it did. And the ambition really reflects in the budget made with a colossal budget of $75 million. The game could have been the greatest, but make no mistake about it, the final product was not something that Ubisoft would be ashamed of ever. This game is really terribly underrated. With that being said, the reason for the super inflated budget was because Ubisoft was completely revamping the Assassin's Creed experience. With the brand new Unreal Next engine, Ubisoft was really pivoting towards greatness. And if you ask me, the game really delivered. Next, number 6, Assassin's Creed Syndicate. By the time Syndicate released, Ubisoft was almost afraid. With the monumental failure of Unity, which we will touch on later in the list, I'm pretty sure the developers were not comfortable in pouring in too much money into any endeavor. And the lack of faith of the developers really reflects in the game as well. Many aspects are inferior even to its predecessor, especially the visuals and the writing, not to mention the budget as well. Made with a budget of between $80 and $85 million, Assassin's Creed Syndicate really stands to be the definition of mediocrity in the franchise. The game never could have been great, especially with Origins on the way and the way Unity backfired in so many aspects. Syndicate ended up being sandwiched between monumental failure and absolute greatness. But despite that, look at the damn budget, $80 to $85 million. I mean, despite a lack of faith, Ubisoft spent quite a dime on this game. Was it worth it? Well, in my opinion, it wasn't, but still a pretty hefty price tag. Next, number 5, Assassin's Creed Black Flag. From mediocrity to extraordinary, Black Flag in my estimation is one of those times every single thing clicked for a developer. Be it the gameplay, the visuals, the music, picture perfect writing, unbelievable critical reception, and incredible sales. It was all there. And much of it is because of the massive budget. I mean, at the end, you really get what you pay for. And pay for it they did. With an astonishing price tag of $100 million. This was literally the first time Ubisoft breached the 9-figure mark. And believe me when I tell you, they made back every bit of that money and way more. Black Flag being the best-selling game in the series up until Assassin's Creed Valhalla released, the game was profitable as hell. And trust me, as far as Ubisoft is concerned, this was literally the best $100 million they've ever spent. Well, we've reached the 100 million mark already and there's still 4 games to go. Let's move on out to number 4, Assassin's Creed Unity. Up until this point, almost every subsequent release had outperformed its predecessor. The Ezio trilogy was tremendously profitable. AC3 had already outsold the best-selling name in the series, and Black Flag had done numbers unseen, unheard of. And Unity was supposed to shatter through the glass ceiling and grab that brass ring. But unfortunately, it did not do any of that. Despite the game amassing a cult following now, at the time of its release, it was literally unplayable, broken beyond belief. And the game unfortunately turned out to be a massive disaster for the developers, because they had poured in a staggering $120 million into this endeavor. And why wouldn't they? Because this franchise had amassed so much steam, nobody expected it to go anywhere but up. But instead, it went up in the smoke. Ubisoft really suffered a lot of losses, and with a shocking number of players returning the game because of its unplayable condition, Unity became the definition of a monumental disaster. Next, number 3, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It really is a behemoth of a game. I mean, so many aspects of this game are so overwhelming, which is exactly what makes the game a favorite of the fans of today. Trust me, despite old school Assassin's Creed fans absolutely hating the guts of Odyssey, the newer fans can't have enough of it, and rightfully so, because if you played the game, you would know it's an experience so dazzling, it'll literally make you blind towards the aspects that really mattered. For example, having an actual assassin in an Assassin's Creed game. And despite many such fundamental problems existing, not only was Assassin's Creed Odyssey massively profitable for Ubisoft, it is also one of the most expensive outings in Ubisoft's history, because the budget of this game is between $125 and $135 million. Talk about price tags that just keep getting higher and higher, because the budget of Odyssey is even comparable to some of the A-list Hollywood movies, maybe even more than them. But when it comes to Odyssey, I'd like to reflect the sentiment that more money spent doesn't equal better product delivered. For me, that rings true here. But despite that, I gotta agree that if nothing else, Ubisoft has delivered the experience, because it's one that you'll never ever forget. Next, number 2, Assassin's Creed Origins. Well, I'm sure a lot of people will agree with me on this. Origins was one of the last times Ubisoft really delivered. We finally got the game we had been dying for. The perfect Assassin's Creed game. Well, almost perfect. Origins was everything the developers promised us and more. You know, some aspects of this game are untouchable to this day. The visuals, the story, the incredible music, and the mystique. Something that I feel is really important and essential aspect, which I think is one of the prime requirements for an Assassin's Creed game to have. It's all about mysterious hooded figures changing the course of history. Now, that's something solely lacking in the games of today. And while talking about Origins, everything in this game was bigger and better than before, including the budget. And as far as I know, Ubisoft had not spent this kind of money on any game before, with a massive price tag of between 140 and 150 million dollars. It's probably one of the most ambitious and well executed projects in Ubisoft's history. This game is literally the equivalent of perfection, and if you haven't played it, you're missing out on the most lucrative and beautiful parts of this amazing franchise. And now, number 1, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Well, was there ever any doubt in your mind? Because Assassin's Creed Valhalla is literally the most ambitious, vivid, and out of this world experience Ubisoft has ever delivered. Granted, that's really breaking away from what the Assassin's Creed franchise used to stand for, but still, Valhalla is the experience of a lifetime, and Ubisoft has spared no expense. A balls to the walls approach. They have literally poured in so many resources into the game. I mean, for God's sake, it took 17 different studios to bring Valhalla to life, and not only that, it took a jaw-dropping 160 to 175 million dollars to make Assassin's Creed Valhalla a reality, and it hardly gets bigger than Valhalla. And with that, we conclude the list. And now, for those who stuck around, Ubisoft has spent in excess of $1.1 billion to make the entire Assassin's Creed franchise happen. Now, those $1.1 billion not only include the main 12 Assassin's Creed games, they also include the spin-offs like Assassin's Creed Liberation, Freedom Cry, the Chronicle series, and all the DLCs we see available. But now you might be thinking exactly how much money they've made back. That's for another video, guys. And if you like this one, hit the like button. I want you to tell me the budget of which Assassin's Creed game shocked you the most. And with that, we end the video, guys. Stay safe, stay strong, and stay tuned. It's your boy VZX signing out.